custodians, respect to elders past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present here this evening. And now, if I could ask everyone to be upstanding for the meeting prayer. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to vouchsafe Thy blessing upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of Thy glory and the true welfare of the people of the Regional Council and Australia. Amen. Amen. Councillors, I'd now like to formally declare the meeting open. First item on our agenda this evening is apologies and leave of absence, and as we're all in attendance and we have no applications for leave of absence, we will move to item 2, community consultation. We have no members of the community here for consultation this evening. That brings us to item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. Move Councillor Rodder and Councillor Inglis. Any comments, discussion on those minutes? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Item 4, disclosures of interest. Any councillors have any disclosures they wish to tender? Councillor Inglis.
We're taking off our master talk tonight, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, item 7.2, and I'll give a copy to the Secretary. 7.2. Declare an interest for reason that my daughter's property neighbours the proposed development. It's a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in the matter. However, as I've done, this matter's been before us on various occasions over the last couple of years, I will leave the chamber because it's a town planning matter and not participate in the debate. And my second disclosure is item 9.2. For reason that I am Director of State Cover Mutual Limited. The Tamworth Regional Council is a member of State Cover Mutual Limited and holds a partly paid share in such entity. That interest is less than significant non-pecuniary interest, and I will remain in the meeting and participate in the discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Inglis. Any further disclosures? If not, we'll move on then. We have no mayoral minute and we have no notice of motion. That brings us to item 7.1 with Councillor Webb and second Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak to your motion?
No, Mr. Mayor. We'll just say a couple of words. One is that it's good to see we're getting on with this, and it's a very exciting time out there in that little region with all the things that are happening, and I look forward to seeing this go out for public exhibition, come back and see what we get out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to vote against the motion? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Tickle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say that the proposed character statements will further enhance the precinct, and this is a wonderful precinct, 246 hectares, and supporting economic and business development in our region. And the landscaping, building design, orientation, traffic, access, parking and noise, all of these and other factors have been addressed in the proposed character statements. And did you hear all that?
Okay.
Thank you. So I strongly endorse this going on public exhibition and encourage the community to have a read of it. It's really an exciting project for this region and to create lots more development and employment within our region.
Thank you. Councillor Inglis.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments. It is great to see it get to this point. There's nothing more exciting than reading a development control plan, is there, Mr. Mayor? But one comment I would make is in Annexure 2 for the draft site-specific controls, it is only for public exhibition, so but for Marathon Street, I notice it's designating rear fencing to be a 1.8 metre colour-bond fence. I'm not sure about you, Mr. Mayor, but they look rather ghastly in my view. And I think you've got a good example of the highway out there of a very long colour-bond fence that looks pretty ordinary. I know there is a buffer between that and Marathon, but I just think that's something we should all have a look at, because I'm not sure the people who live all the way along Marathon Street would want to be, that'll be quite a long ColourBond fence, and they look pretty ordinary in those more rural environments. But over and above that, Mr Mayor, I'd also like to acknowledge some of the public submissions, even though they're the ones from the original advertising. There's quite a few people that went to quite a bit of work and provided some really good constructive engineering sort of input. So that's just acknowledging that, you know, it's great that we have people like that in the community who do take an interest in such matters and put their time and effort into putting in those submissions. So just acknowledging that those good quality submissions. But yeah, Mr Mayor, we might just keep that in mind with that ColourBond fence, the full distance of Marathon. That'll look pretty ordinary, I reckon.
Thank you. Councillor Betts.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Very, very briefly, in my time in local government, you make some fairly momentous decisions, and this Global Gateway Enterprise is one of those. I think it strategically is going to really give Tamworth that boost, because it really aligns with our Blueprint 100, and I think it needs to be sort of put out there and really advertised to the broader community to make sure that everyone has their input, because I think it's one of the significant milestones in Tamworth's future. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Item 7.2. Moved by Councillor Wilson and seconded by Councillor Webb. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Get rid of the years. This is a really landmark and unique development, and it really excites me because it's really the first specific VCP that's been launched for a specific project, and it represents a comprehensive project that all the relevant directorates in this organisation have worked on together from the ground up, worked together with developers, worked together with owners, work together with consultants and service providers, and it looks at community building rather than subdivision building. It provides housing variety, recreation, landscaping, accessibility, services, environmental sustainability, and green space, or as it's described, a green spine going through the centre of this development. And I think it's truly exciting that we're coming of age now where we look at creating communities rather than legal developments that have got services provided, but didn't think much about the environment, didn't think too much about how people would interact, and didn't think too much about sustainability. But this involves all of those in a package, and the understanding with the charrette was developed from the ground up, the roots up, and everybody had input. There was no silo management and late discoveries of what was expected, and I hope this is the start of many, that this is now the expectation we have within council and the expectation developers in this region who are developing here have, that this is the way we do things, and we expect all these elements to be considered when divisions and when new developments are made. I think it's exciting.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against the motion? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Tickle.
In support of what Councillor Wilson has said, and in particular the stakeholder involvement in this whole process has been amazing, and we've had so much input to take into consideration, and from people that have been in the business for a long time and just the general community. It's been a wonderful experience, and we've come up with a quite unique plan, and a plan that I'm sure that Tamworth will be proud of. We're catering for different demographics. Not everyone wants to live in a 4-bedroom house with family room and a children's room and some other rooms. A lot of people wish to have a smaller residence, 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom, and it's been identified we're extremely short of that type of residential housing in Tamworth. And what also I liked about this, like the smaller lots like in a duplex, will be overlooking open space, and we're going to create a wonderful forest in the gully, and we're going to have a green and cool canopy, and the landscaping has been taken into account, and a variety in lot sizes. So if someone wants to have a bigger lot size and a bigger house, they can, and smaller houses, homes are catered for as well. It's well done to all involved, and as we said, it has involved a lot of the community, and it's the way that we like to operate, to get the community feedback to come up with a plan such as this.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. And Jason, would you care to just grab councillor inputs for me, please? So councillors, that now brings us to item 7.3. Move Councillor Betts and Councillor Rodder, thank you. Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, Mr Mayor.
Any councillors wish to speak against? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Wilson.
Mr Mayor, this is common sense wording. It really puts the focus and the positive where it belongs, and I just think it makes sense, and I'm pleased this has happened.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Item 7.4. Move Councillor Rodder and Councillor Impey. Councillor Rodder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Any councillors wish to speak against? Any councillors wish to make comment? None, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Item 7.5. Move Councillor Webb and Councillor Impey, thank you. Councillor Webb, do you wish to comment about your motion?
Oh, there's not much to say, Mr Mayor, only that it makes complete and absolute sense to do this, and it's good that we've had the ability to get that up and running very quickly before there's too much more development out there.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against the motion? Any councillors wish to make comment? Not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Item 8.1. Councillor Impey and Councillor Maxwell, thank you. Councillor Impey, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I'd just like a quick word, only that I think it's a very positive strategy, and it will assist and support in creating a physical environment for people to explore exercise more readily, and to keep active more readily, as well as hopefully, as the report says, increase the numbers of people who use active transport to go to work each day, from I think approximately 1 in 20 as it is at the moment to at least 1 in 10 or even better in the future. So I think it's a very positive step forward, and I'm hoping it will also assist us as a region in continuing to grow our network of shared cycleways and those facilities needed for active transport.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against the motion? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Tickle.
The active transport strategy is something that, as a community, we've been aiming for a long time, and now we have it, and we've seen amazing progress out there with footpaths, shared pathways, and people are using them, which is even better. And they're appreciated by the whole community, which is evidenced by those that are using, including, and it caters for people of all abilities. That's what's so wonderful about the shared pathways. We've got that extra width for people on a walker, in a wheelchair, someone wheeling a pram, a couple of children at their side, and of course cyclists and pedestrians. As Councillor Impey said, we hope to increase those walking to work, and the target is to double that in the next 10 years. As a community, I'm sure that we can achieve this, and it's going to be made all the more possible with the lighting that we've got on some of our main pathways. So anyone that's bordering on dark going home from work, those main pathways are going to be well lit. It's another strategy where we've consulted very well with the community, and I think the staff for all the effort that they put in doing that and compiling the comments from the community. A lot of that feedback was very, very useful in compiling this strategy. I think it's also appropriate to acknowledge this ongoing support that we've had from the federal and state governments in funding a lot of these programs. We've seen grant money come forth in this last 12 to 18 months that we haven't seen before for various reasons, with the drought and then COVID, and that's been put to very good use, something that the whole community can benefit from.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Betts.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Once again, briefly, to put a few things in perspective, a fantastic strategy, really is. But there's 118 kilometres of footpaths that exist already, and 36 kilometres of shared cycleway, which is quite fantastic. And 118 kilometres is basically footpaths here to Armidale, so there is an extensive footpath network. And in the next 2 years, there'll be 7.7 kilometres of shared cycleway and another 2.2 kilometres of footpaths, which really sort of puts it in perspective that it is an active strategy. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The motion is carried. Item 8.2. Move Councillor Inglis and Councillor Maxwell. Thank you. Councillor Inglis, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of, I'll just pick up on a couple of things, seeing we actually are adopting it tonight, but on page 194 it talks about the capacity of the various sporting facilities out there to host national and regional and state. It doesn't mention the word international. And as you know, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 international hockey fields. So I feel we should put the word in the page 194. It talks about capacities. We should include the word international, because that's a fact. And I think that's particularly important now that Brisbane has been announced as the venue for the 2032 Olympics. I think there are some, we might talk about this later when we talk about our economic strategy, that I think there are some wonderful opportunities for this city to start to think about what role it might play in the delivery of those Olympic Games in Brisbane, in the context of those countries that do go to countries far earlier. Can you think of a better place if you wanted a regional location to prepare athletes for the Olympics, acclimatising, all that sort of stuff? So I think there's some wonderful space there to have some conversations going forward. Also on page 194, Mr. Mayor, ALEC, it says it's the Australian Equine and Livestock Entertainment Centre. It's actually, as you know, Mr. Mayor, it's the Events Centre. So that should just be corrected, seeing we're adopting it. And the only other comment I'd make, Mr. Mayor, is on page 198 and 199. We've got a couple of site maps there, and on one map it includes the old athletics site, and then on the second map it doesn't include. And at this point I'd be suggesting it shouldn't be included. So just a little tidy up there. Over and above that, Mr. Mayor, similar to the Global Gateway, it's just fantastic, isn't it, to be part of this strategic planning endeavour. There's some exciting conversations going on with the University of New England regards the sports hub, and that's mentioned, and good times ahead, Mr. Mayor. It's all very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Motion is carried. Item 8.3. Councillor Rodder and Councillor Betts. Councillor Rodder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is exciting because, as we saw a year and a half ago, we were at quite an invidious position with our water supplies, and I think anything that we can do to add to the suite of water infrastructure that we have is a good thing. And we took the I guess a gamble at the time to investigate fractured rock water supplies, and it's good to see that some of them have yielded the sort of standards of supply that we need for our future. And I think if you add that to not only our main water storages, Chaffey Dam and Dungowan, plus the possibility of water recycling in the future, it will certainly hopefully future-proof us in terms of water supply into the future.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against the motion? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Betts.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Totally support the recommendation. Even though I'm a tad sceptical that we're going to find anything, it's going to yield the results that we want, because we probably know from my limited geological background, I think we're not probably in the ideal area to really take advantage of the underground aquifer that's there. But it's certainly the fact that we're on the Peel Fault that really is next to the New England granite batholith that could feed water into that deep aquifer. So it really is, to me, a no-brainer to actually go ahead and do the first part, do the wells out there at the ALEC, and see how they go. Because I think if it's ruled that we do get water, that's great, but if not, it does help the future of Tamworth. We can focus on other areas. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further discussions? Councillor Wilson?
Mr. Mayor, if this was up and going when we were down to 14%, how good would that have been? And when I was thinking about it, it's really interesting. Previous generations actually relied on water, below the ground water, bore water, to develop a lot of Australia. That was the water they used, and they were optimistic. And I think we need to be optimistic too. And we've sought professional advice, and it's come to us, and we're beholden to check this out. An interesting thing, it might not be representative of the water that's there, but anybody who grew up in that area and saw the water, the surface water near the Long Yard and behind One Tree Hill, so there's so much water on the surface there, and if anybody's tried to play golf recently, my gosh, you just puddle in it. And there is always water running from springs or some such under the Sydney Road near the Long Yard that just runs completely. It doesn't mean there'll be water deep down and we can access it, but there's certainly water at a high level there.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Inglis?
Mr. Mayor, just a question on Goddess G looks after the geology, but just looking at the money side of it for a moment, the 170 grand to sink 2 bores. I'm not sure about you, Mr. Mayor, that sounds rather expensive for 2 bores, but I assume that's based on some factual quotation or whatever. But I guess my question, Mr. Mayor, is it obviously doesn't reach the tender threshold, but what's our procurement policy say about something in that order? How many quotations do we get for a 170?
Mr. Mayor, 2 comments. So the procurement policy says that we need to get 3 quotations for less than 250,000. And in relation to your other comment about the cost, they are 100 deep. Well, we're expecting that bores will be 100 metres deep, so they are relatively expensive. And we looked at the costs in the James Street bores, which are a similar sort of depth when we looked at those prices. So,
thank you. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Webb?
Yeah, look, I think it's an exciting time too, because we might be in a good place now, but water-wise we could be only a few years and you could be looking to get a more sustainable supply to keep the city going. So all of these little things, as Councillor Rodder said, can added together can really secure our water supply for the future. So I'm a bit excited about this. I think there's every possibility we could get some wins here, and that could be very good for us in the longer term.
Thank you. Councillor Tickle.
The long-term benefits speak for themselves, really, and I think it is something that we should pursue. However, I had question, and that is, given the replenished water table we have right now, and if we do the drilling now, with the daily flow and replenish rates be indicative of the water we would expect to see in periods of prolonged drought that we've just been through?
Mr Mayor, there's no guarantees, Councillor Tickle. It is, we are looking at tapping into fractured rock, and fractured rock is a bit more reliable than alluvial groundwater, but there is no guarantee that the amount of water that we find on day 1 will still be there on day 300 or day 5. We can, as part of the testing of the bore, we can test or stress the aquifer to a certain extent. But again, that's one of the problems with groundwater, is that you can't see the extent of the reservoir that you've tapped into, and we won't know that until we've used that bore for a relatively long period of time and through drought periods.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. And item 8.4. We have someone to move 8.4. Thanks, Councillor Betts and Councillor Impey. Thank you. Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Very briefly again, Mr Mayor. Look, I do support the $10,000 for 10 years. That's $100,000. But in the report, it said that the chances of getting funding from that could only probably be about $200,000 for our $100,000, which is not a great investment if you're just looking at those straight dollar terms. However, to be part of the research program that this offers, I think is just imperative that we be in it. It's not for the actual project that we would get out of it as far as the federal matching funding, but it's the research and the science that we get out of it. So I'll totally support it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against? Councillor Inglis?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'll be voting against it. We voted against it one time previously. And the reasons then I don't think have changed much, and that is that I don't think it's a local government responsibility. It's not site specific at all, and it's basically a PhD program on steroids. And whilst that's fine, for that amount of money, I could think of a whole lot of other things in relation to PhD programs that I'd prefer to spend that money on that specifically relate to the Tamworth region. You could do a PhD program and offer scholarships on Blueprint, for example, and get people to research the things that we're specifically interested in. As you know, the management of water gets down to state government fundamentally, and they're the ones that should be funding this, and for me, this is not good value at all.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to make comment? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is lost. That brings us to item 8.5. Move Councillor Webb and Councillor Wilson, thank you. Councillor Webb, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I need to say, Mr Mayor, we've been working towards this for some time. It's good to see it happening. Let's move forward and keep our options open up there.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Inglis?
Mr Mayor, just a question. I'm just curious. We're not even 1 month into our new budget, and it's a large expenditure item, and I understand the cost, and I'm sure that's all justified. But I'm just curious from a governance perspective. It's a large item to be not form of the budget. In other words, outside of the budget. Is there any reason why it wasn't budgeted? I mean, we've known about this for some time. I just think it's bad practice to have large chunks of money, and when, as I say, we're not even 1 month into our fiscal year, and we've got 600 grand as an out of budget approval.
We thought that we would have a program of up to 5 years, that the EPA would accept that program for addressing these stormwater issues, and we proposed that we would allow funding in the future 5 years capital works program to allow this to happen. as the report says, the EPA considered that and said no, they wanted a firmer commitment and in a much shorter time frame. And that's why we're asking the council for this money now.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Impey?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, this is almost a direct reflection of the changing climate. I'm not going to suggest it's climate change, but certainly the frequency of high rainfall events or short bursts of high rainfall events seems to be increasing over the last few years. I know at that particular time where those 2 rainfall events happened fairly quickly, I think it was this November or December 2020 from memory, there was a lot of other damage, people's driveways washed away, and there was a lot of other stuff going on at the time. And we've got the potential of a back-to-back La Nina pattern occurring over the next, most of the spring and summer, and we could just see some more of these types of events happening. I wonder where we'd be placed if we were a very small council and we had a garbage tip in that space there and we needed $600,000. I wonder whether or not there may have been some funding forthcoming from other sources, but to create enough water capacity to go from 2.8 megalitres to 16.8 megalitres, that's a lot of increase in storage to capture that flow. So, look, I'm all for it. I think it's a good thing. We need to, really. The EPA requires us to do it, but if we were a small council, I'm not sure we'd be able to do it, but being a large council, we can.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Item 8.6. Councillor Tickle moving and seconded Councillor Wilson. Councillor Tickle, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a great initiative, and it's being used in many other council areas. And I think as a council we must continue to undertake marketing and education to eliminate waste. And one of those ways is to reduce the use of single-use items such as coffee cups, such as plastic bags, such as takeaway food containers. We need to encourage our community not just to use and throw, and to see if we have a second use or multiple uses from an item. This program has been rolled out and run successfully in many other areas. Our Tamworth community, and including one business in Nundle, have already indicated that they'd be keen to participate in this program. And as with a lot of programs, and it's proven to be successful in other areas, once one business starts and it can see the success, then other people will sign up for it. So it's new to us, and I think it will have a lot of followers using an app, and I have got a great coffee culture in Tamworth, and those waste bins are full of cups and mugs. They all end up in landfills. So as a community, we have to continue to do something about eliminating waste, and this is one such way.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Inglis?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll be voting against this motion. I think it's not appropriate at all, particularly during COVID, and for 2 main reasons. One, to think that you'd encourage a program where you hand back in cups, and then the one that you get back is one that's been washed by the retailer whilst you're in the middle of a COVID pandemic. I find extraordinary, number one. And number two, looking at it in a more legislative way, I'm interested in the fact that it wouldn't surprise me that you could get a competitive neutrality complaint. And as you're aware, Mr. Mayor, that's where you use government money to incentivise a consumer to go to one business over another. So far, there's only 7 who have indicated, 23,000, that's about $3,200 sponsorship for each of those individual businesses. And if I'm the coffee shop who's not participating in the scheme next to the coffee shop that is participating in the scheme, I'm not too sure I'd be all that happy about that, because we've used government money to encourage, to incentivise a consumer to go into a particular business over another. So on that principle, I'm against it. But right now in COVID, I just also find it just so inappropriate. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Further comments, Councillor Webb?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll be voting against it too. I think it's a waste of money. If we've got that much money to spare laying around, we should be filling a few more potholes. Can I talk about it in another sense? Yes, we don't like to see these single-use cups wasted and thrown into landfill, but they don't have to be. They can be recycled as it is. But if we're keen about not putting those cups into a landfill, what a lot of people do now, and what I certainly do, and my wife does when we go travelling, and you can do it in town, I know a lot of people do, you go and you buy one of these. Costs you a few bucks, and there's no waste. There is no waste. There's no problem with COVID because it's your cup. You take it home, you drink, or take it back to the office, you drink it, give it a bit of a wash. When you want another cup, you take it back with you. We don't have to spend this money to get the outcomes that are talked about in this report. All we have to do is those people that are keen to do this, is they go and buy one of these, and it's theirs, and they can use it themselves. They can take it to any coffee shop in Tamworth. They will fill them up, and you can use that yourself, wash it and take it back. I think spending this amount of money, 23,000 in the first hit, then I think it works its way up to about 36,000. I think that's as a waste of money in my opinion, and I think it's a feel-good thing, an absolute waste of money, and council is on a tight budget. When people, if they want to do what you're talking about in this report, they can just go and buy one of these and do their own thing, as most of us do anyway.
Thank you. Further comments, Councillor Wilson?
A couple of things, Mr Mayor. Currently, if you go to a restaurant or a coffee shop and you use a plate or a knife and fork, they're taken into the kitchen and washed too, just the same as these would be washed. No different, COVID or not. We don't take disposable gear to a restaurant and take it home again. Another perspective is that there are many in the community who would like to be able to recycle, and this is a form of facilitation. And the intent of the community is to recycle, and their will is, but the knowledge and the ability to, and I agree with Councillor Webb's suggestion that you can take your cup around, doesn't always work. It particularly doesn't work when people have got children and their bottles and everything else. So I see this as a good way of facilitating a community to exercise their desire to recycle. So it does cost, but it's another arm to our recycling intent.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Tickle with the right of reply. Close the debate.
Thank you, yes. It does say in the report that these mugs go through a dishwasher just the same as any other item that you use from a cafe or from a restaurant. I think also we should look at the bigger picture than just the coffee cups. This message would be marketing to reuse. Don't just have a single use and toss it, so we can apply it to other items apart from coffee cups. I'm so pleased Councillor Webb takes his own mug to get a coffee. I think we all should bring our own bottle in here instead of using plastic. Okay, and we really have to work hard to reduce waste. And this is one such way to do it. And as I said, it's not just a message out there for coffee cups, it's a message for everything. Think before you throw it in the bin. Can you use it? Can you go and put those vegetable scraps in the ground? Start your own compost until we get our own organics facility. We're just too used to just throwing, and there's so many items that going into that landfill, and we can't keep doing it. It's just unsustainable. So just say to look at the bigger picture with this. It's just not coffee cups. We're sending out the message to everybody. Try to have another use out of an item, be it a coffee cup, be it a plastic bag, be it a takeaway container. So I strongly support this. Look, there are several councils that do it. They can't all have it wrong. Why don't we put our name on this list as well?
Thank you, and that closes the debate, councillors. I'll now put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? The motion is lost. That brings us to item 9.1, moved Councillor Inglis and seconded Councillor Impey. Thank you. Councillor Inglis, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Oh, Mr Mayor, just to make the observation that, as the report says, these low rates are probably going to be around till 2024, which is, good 3 fiscal years into the future. And just to make the point that when you look at our sort of portfolio, and it's sort of, it always averages around that 170 to 180 million. And if you just compare, the rates of, say, 3% to what we're currently getting to, 0.3%, just to put that in perspective, that's a loss to us of about $5 million a year. So over 3 years, that's $15 million that we would have got certainly pre-COVID just with the better rates. So it's interesting how it's about serious money, isn't it, Mr Mayor?
Sure is. Any councillors wish to make comment? Or any councillors wish to vote, speak against the motion? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillors, I would like to support Councillor Inglis's comments, and I think, given that we can reasonably expect these sort of rates for the next few years, I think being responsible for managing our community's money, we need to have a close look at a bit like what Councillor Tickle just said. You just got to think about throwing it in the bin. Well, I think we need to think about just putting our money in the bank. Is there a better use for it or a bit more productive use? And I think that'll be incumbent on councils for the next few years to have a think about what those options might look like. So we do have large reserves for long-term projects, so that money's going to be sitting for long terms in places before it's required for use for infrastructure for the future. So I guess that's just an observation, councillors. So I'd now like to put that motion. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. And that brings us to item 9.2. Moved Councillor Betts and seconded Councillor Impey. Thank you. Councillor Betts, do you wish to speak to the motion? Any councillors wish to speak against? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Inglis.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of questions and some observations. I see with our airport, as we all know, the airport's on life support at present in the context of the financial side of it. And I noticed in there 35 grand increase in cost for pest control. I gather that's for Mises, because I was out there recently and I could not believe how many were in where John is, and it's incredible, the smell and the stench and all the rest of it. So it just goes to show they're small, but they can cause a lot of expenditure. Our airport fees and charges decreased, 170 grand, and remembering this is a month report. Mr Mayor, my two questions. I see there on page 218, the CSIRO, I've asked about that before, the pilot wastewater treatment trial. We approved some additional money not that long ago, and I see there's a further $50,000 increase in that. So just what's that about? And secondly, the dams management system development new project, 30 grand. What's that about, please?
Mr Mayor, I'm not sure, Councillor Inglis, in relation to the CSIRO, that's we got the $50,000 from the government that they presented that we would get. That's $50,000 in funding, not the additional expenditure, I don't believe.
It's not what it says, but okay.
And in relation to the dam safety, we're required under the new New South Wales Dam Safety, New South Wales dams requirements to prepare a dam safety management plan, and that funding is to support finalising that document.
Thanks. Yeah, no, okay. So the dam, that's the new legislation about all councils now have to do a whole with that new
councils that own prescribed dams. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Item 10.1. Move Councillor Rodder and Councillor Tickle. Thank you. Councillor Rodder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you. This is a good opportunity to, get a group of people together that are passionate about our festival, and given the assets that our council or our community owns, is probably important in terms of the way forward and working out how we best promote those and look after those assets. And I think that it would probably be a committee similar to that wash-up meeting that you have, but an ongoing one that goes all year round. So from that perspective, it'd be a good opportunity to really enhance our festival, and anyone that is passionate about the festival to our region, I'm sure that would give them all the opportunity to serve on that committee. But I think it's a good opportunity to draw in all that experience and knowledge, important experience and knowledge, to ensure that our festival has a great future.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against? Any councillors wish to make comment? Councillor Wilson?
Just briefly, Mr Wilson, Mr Mayor, this is such a good idea. It makes one wonder why it hasn't happened sooner, to be honest. And it provides the opportunity for all perspectives of the festival to hold together and perhaps in a coordinated manner develop new strategies together. And often it's only reflective past the festival that this group gather together. But I see this as adding extra security for the festival as we go through rocky times, which are a bit unpredictable these days. So brilliant idea, and of course it'll be critical to select the right people to represent this board. Not too many, but enough.
Thank you. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Webb?
Just one, Mr Mayor, if we do move this recommendation, we'll actually have to appoint a councillor with the recommendation, because the Mayor of the day plus a councillor.
Yep. That's true. I assume, Mr General Manager, some advice please. We would need to select a councillor this evening. That committee would be instigated during this term of council?
Yes, Mr Mayor, as soon as you approve part one, the group is effectively established, so yes, we need a councillor representative.
So councillors, do we have any further debate on the actual motion? If not, we have maybe some nominations for politicians.
Mr Mayor.
So Councillor Webb would like to be considered. Any further nominations? Councillor Rodder? Any further? If not, we will need to have a vote. We might do that by a show of hands.
I'm happy either way, Mr Mayor.
I'll withdraw, Mr Mayor, and then Councillor Webb was first.
Must be a very, very highly sought after position for
Done it for a few months.
Thank you, Councillor Rodder. So, councillors, are we happy to appoint Councillor Webb as the council hall representative?
Yep.
Thank you. So, councillors, I'd now like to put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 10.2. Councillor Tickle and second Councillor Betts. Thank you. Councillor Tickle, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do. Thank you. There's just a slight amendment which we've made on the screen, and it needs to be Nundle, not Katingle. Hill Street, Nundle. Yeah, just made that amendment just in case you're wondering. But the Disability Access Working Group we've throughout the year, and we've got the input from people that work in those areas, and the committee, among many things, have been put many ideas forward, and many of them have been adopted. The one you see before you there we're looking for some funding to pursue that the improved access in that area at Nundle, so hopefully there might be an opportunity come available. Also, I'll just draw your attention to the last part in the general business in the minutes, because the committee thought that it would be the last one with this council, and they did want to thank, I'll read it from the minutes, the working group expressed appreciation for the recognition, support and commitment of council and other funding bodies in delivering projects that increase inclusiveness within our community. They were very appreciative of what has been happening and all the infrastructure, more disability car spaces, ramps, and they acknowledge that the council has been doing what it can to improve accessibility.
Thank you. Any councillors wish to speak against the motion? Any councillors wish to make a comment? Councillor Impey.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just an observation in the minutes of that meeting. I'm not on that committee, so I don't attend the meetings, but very nice to see that the Lingsford Life Disability Expo has been rescheduled, not cancelled, because it is a fantastic event for the community. I've been to that event many times, both as a visitor and also I've been an exhibitor at that event about 12 years ago, I think it was, in the town hall. But and Danielle Northey has played a major role in making that event the success it is today. The times that have been more recently, it's packed, and there are people there from all the sections of the community with a whole range of different abilities. And they are there because it's the one single event that allows them to discover and find out what sorts of programs and what sorts of services exist for them, and their carers and their minders and other people who work with them and look after them. So it is really good to see, and I genuinely hope that this COVID restriction, as a result of what's going on, unfortunately, in one of our capital cities, can calm down a little, and hopefully this event will go forward and happen on the 4th of November.
Thank you. Any further comments? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. And now, before I ask for a mover to move items 11.1 through to 11.7 to go into closed council, are there any members of the public who would like to see any of these matters brought before open council, or any members of the council? If not, I would like to invite those members of the public to vacate the chamber and thank them for their interest and attention. And councillors, if we could have a motion then to carried. Thank you, Chase. The General Manager will report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is a report from the closed session of the Ordinary Council meeting held on the 27th of July 2021. In closed council, you considered 7 items from 12.1 through 12.7. For items 12.1 through 6, you adopted the recommendations as per the business paper. For item 12.7, you removed Roman numeral 4 from the recommendation and adopted it as per the business paper.
Thank you. Could we have a motion to accept that report now? Councillor Maxwell and Councillor Impey, those in favour? Against? Carried. And that now brings to a close our formal meeting, and